Warning, the following program contains extreme coarse language and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion is extremely advised. And we are extremely advised. Good evening. It is Talking Truth Tuesday. I'm ADC, and I'm quite happy to be joined by Des and Justin. How are we tonight, comrades?
Good. I am feeling better now that I'm in a space.
Excellent. And Justin, how's heading into this evening outside of the bullshit that's happening in Medicine Hat?
Doing great. I realized today that not that long ago that the the by-election was happening. I'm like, okay, so today is just going to be crazy. It's going to be yeah. So this is going to be great. So I assume like once we're done this, we're going to start getting results from that by-election, and I'm sure it's going to be great for us. It's going to be great for all of us.
Absolutely. It's going to be great for anyone that wants to not have capitalism. Yeah, absolutely. That's what Medicine Hat and Brooks is all about, is not about exploitation of labor or killing workers or any of those sort of things. It's all about socialism and taking care of the community. So if you haven't been able to tell, that we are talking truth, and that's sarcasm. So we with our new
Gotta make it really
we had to make it because we are streaming on Twitter right now, so we had to make that very clear for the new Lord and Savior, Mr. Musk, in regards to that. That is called satire, and that's funny, and the shit that you do is not. All right, we got that out of the way. We've got a lot of things to talk about. And anyone who's joining us live, the best way to find us and be able to chat with us is on YouTube, as we are back on YouTube after we got our first stream shut down in the middle of the first ever episode of Talking Truth. So we're back, and we'll see if we get shut down again tonight. If we do get shut down, you can find us on Rumble with the rest of the right-wing nut jobs. We're not right-wing nut jobs. We're actually coming from the left, but all those lunatics over in Rumble. We're also on Odyssey, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If we ever get up to 1,000 followers on TikTok, so if you want to follow us, ADC Truth on TikTok, we can then stream live on TikTok as well. But anyway, we are here to talk about Alberta politics. abpoli is that hashtag and that beautiful Twitter handle that I co-founded, because holy shit, I didn't realize that abpoli was we were able to get that, and then we could actually kind of make sure the messages weren't just better off with Rachel or let's vote UCP and Jason Kenney and whoever else, now Danielle Smith. They all bullshit all the time. So we use some of our talking truth on that as well. You'll see that. We try not to sell the brand a lot there, but if some bullshit comes up, we will share right away. And speaking of bullshit, we go to okay, we're going to start with Justin. We're going to start with you, actually, because you were at the convention.
Start with bullshit, yeah.
We'll start with the bullshit. You've been with the Alberta NDP for a number of years. Is that correct?
Yeah, for about, I guess, 2 years now. I originally got started, I think it was, I first attended the federal NDP convention that was online, which was a huge disaster. So that was in like early spring. So yeah, it's been like a year and a half. So I've just had a great time. You know, it's been a great year and a half.
And you're getting right to the point of your experience with the NDP.
Yeah, I know I'm really jumping the gun here, but yeah, so I've been involved for about a year and a half. I have a background in community organizing, specifically in the 2S LGBTQ community in rural Alberta. So I planned fun things like drag shows and, Pride Week and things like that in, a rural community. And so that was a challenge, and you didn't really know like, is this a supportive space? Is this not? Thankfully, I found out in my experience that my rural community was a lot more supportive than I thought it was, because I grew up in such a like fundamentalist, sheltered environment. So, rural Alberta is pretty great, despite what I live in Edmonton now. So what we like to think about rural Alberta, there's a lot of great people. But that's sort of my background in sort of organizing, and kind of why I got involved with the NDP is because I was like, you know what, I'm an organizer. I'm really passionate about social justice issues, newly sort of figuring out that I have a disability or two or three, and sort of wanted to, sort of act on that and, make a difference. So, yeah, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. And that is the key, is that disability piece. And we have seen a lot of talk and no action coming from all parties in regards to disability and AISH and all those sort of things. And not that that's a transition, Dee, but your experience, what got you to the point you are now as the most recently being the president of your area?
Yeah. So I guess background wise, like I've always kind of been interested in politics. I'm Métis, and I think like Métis people just naturally are political people. Like we had to figure out a system historically how to, get laws and divide resources amongst people who really did not like being told how to live their lives or being told what to do. So we're really political people, and I had a lot of knowledge growing up kind of that fact. My parents didn't vote for the NDP. They were Green Party voters. And I didn't really start considering myself even remotely interested in them until I was in grade 11. And my history teacher loved Jack Layton, absolutely loved Jack Layton, which is really funny because he's like a bleeding heart Trudeau liberal now, which is a little bit of commentary, really. And yeah, I was kind of just like a passive voter for the longest time. My first election I could vote in was 2015. And I didn't really like Mulcair. Okay, I'll be real with you. I did like Jack Layton. I would describe myself at that time as a liberal, to be honest with you. Like politically, I would have called myself a liberal. But I didn't really like Mulcair. So I voted for the NDP kind of symbolically almost, because I knew that he wouldn't win in my riding, because it's always conservative or conservative adjacent. And yeah, it's very conservative here. And then in 2020, I got contacted by a member from the federal NDP who was looking to set up a riding here in EDA in Lakeland. And I will be real with you, I was really excited. To be frank, I had a lot of that unlimited zeal kind of thing they were looking for. I was really gung-ho about the NDP. I have an orange power suit and I have orange high heels to go with it. That's the level I was at, and I was really gung-ho. I jumped in, became the president of Lakeland in December 2020. I was also at the convention, the federal convention. You'll actually see me on screen all 3 days. And I was so anxious afterwards. I was I couldn't stop sitting. I was freaking out. I was moving around, just super anxious about it, because I was oh my gosh, I spoke after Jagmeet Singh. I did. It was wild to me. And I was joining Courage as well, who were trying to get resolutions passed that, Palestinian solidarity. And it really felt like we were fighting the party for visibility and to talk about these resolutions that had been submitted that I thought were really important. And I thought were, aligned with the NDP. And, not so much. It was kind of a frustrating situation, but I still had a lot of belief. I was actively seeking a candidate here in Lakeland. We had somebody in mind. He was from a smaller community. He was rurally connected. He was really cool. And then he just decided he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't interested, which totally fair. It's so exposing to do. And it's really, really it's a full-time job to do and you don't get paid for it. Totally fair. And I got asked afterwards if I would do it. And to be real with you, like, I thought eventually I would run in the election, but I thought I was going to be like flirty and 30, you know, like I would have had my shit together a little bit. I would have been going into this with like the confidence of a woman who's like established, but here I am, like a little muskrat shivering in my boots going, okay, I'll run as the candidate. Sure, I'll do that. I'm just starting antidepressants because of this, but let's go, right? Like, I'm not the kind of person who would really do that normally. And I'm anxious about that visibility, but I was like, you know what? I believe in this, and I did it. And I really went for it. A lot of people, when we talk about my favorite things about the election, honestly, it was going door to door. It was getting told by people, no, I'm a conservative. It was getting told by people, like this one lady who was really into the PPC, like slamming on her door, yelling about Mad Max saving Canada. It was the moments where I was talking to people who the NDP doesn't even care to reach, and just being visible and sitting in their communities and being part of them and patronizing their businesses. And like, I was knocking on as many doors as I could. I knocked on every single door in Ranfurly and spent as long as I could talking to people about whatever they needed to talk about. And I had worked rurally before, just as a separate kind of job. I did some support care work for students with disabilities. And I was working in like Bonnyville and Cold Lake and St. Paul and all these small communities in rural Alberta. And I really grew to love it and to have this appreciation of my homelands as well, because this is part of the Métis Nation's like historic homelands. These are in a way also my people, right? And I had this really great appreciation that just kind of matured during the election. And as I continued doing the NDP and wanting to nurture that, I started to notice some red flags. I have been a part of lots of jobs and organizations where you need to be peachy all the time, happy. I love this brand. I love this, you know, company, this cult, this group, whatever. You know, there's this expectation for you to have this kind of uncritical excitement and uncritical devotion. And I've been in those situations before, and I've let them take over a lot of aspects of my life, and it's really unhealthy. And so as soon as I kind of saw these red flags, less so in the federal party in my experience, but a lot in the Alberta NDP, when I started kind of getting involved more in the political side, or the provincial side, those red flags really concerned me. There's just no accountability. There's no room for growth in a way that like they are unwilling to move in a direction that makes sense. They're unwilling to use their critical thinking skills when it comes to some very important things. And I mean that in a way that's like I have a shirt in my closet that says Notley Crew. Okay, like I need you to understand the fan level of NDP zest that I have and had, really, because it dwindles more and more every day as I watch the provincial NDPs do what they do, from Ontario ousting leftists who are genuinely good people in their communities, like people that I personally really care about, seeing them get screwed over. And then, you know, BC, what happened with Anjali? We're watching 30,000 people joining a party because they're fucking excited for something. And the fossil fuel industry is like, oh shit, let's cut that shit out. Hold up, we got to call our buddies at the NDP who we have deep in our freaking hands because we got them right in our pockets. Like, let's call them up. Let's get somebody in here who's going to give us what we want, because that's what this is about. And I think it's like, there's just this, there's a part of me that sees the social aspect, like Justin said, it's like high school. I almost feel like it's not quite like high school in the way that there's like this social hierarchy. It's more of like, you get involved and you need to be in, or else you're not in. Uh-oh, not good. We have to fix that, or else. And it becomes a cycle where they're willing to bully people in line. And that's not what I want from the government. And I am not the kind of adult who is willing to let someone do that to me. And so I really like being a part of the federal side still. I haven't had as bad of an experience, although some days, but the provincial side is just gross.
Treating them really well right now. Yeah.
Oh, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
On the live stream? Is that what we're doing?
When you have the federal leader in Germany with a bunch of people in the midst of these especially just the midst of this disastrous stuff that could happen in the US and the disastrous stuff that's going to happen here in 39 minutes.
That quick? Oh no.
Yeah, it's like the NDP really was like, biggest labor movement in history. Let's go pay for war. Let's go get some war. And it's like, could you please use your frontal lobe? You are older than 25. You've grown up. I know when I turned 25, holy crap, the world changed. And I'll tell anybody that. I repeat it every day. 25, I'm sorry, people really don't state it enough. Everything changes and you're like, oh no. Cringe at myself.
The trauma and everything, it was just like click right there. Right
literally, all of the little SpongeBobs in my brain doubled. Like, it was a wild experience. Like, but we're all adults here. There are places you should be. Also, flying in a climate crisis, cringe. And I also say that to Taylor Swift, and I don't care.
Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, who voted shitty today, and the Kardashians, and everyone basically who are god-awful, capitalist compensated colonialists that continue to use their private jets. Yeah, fuck off.
It's going to be barbarism, isn't it?
To go grocery shopping. I would love that because I can't even be motivated now that it's like -10 now. I couldn't even walk down the block to the
hey, with climate change, it won't be -10 for long.
Well, we could use the climate revolution here in central Alberta because it's going to be -40 come 5-6 hours from now. They've already got the cold warning, and anyway, and my daughter is sitting there with a fever of 39.8 Celsius, and we can't get children's Tylenol or Advil because I don't understand that one other than the fact
free
that
market,
we're pushing for and this is where the argument comes in about the COVID, where I'm really pissed off at not my Premier Smith and the rest of them, Kenny and all that, lifting the regulations. Now, I'm not going to get into a battle about vaccines. Yes, I'll say right now, I've been
I'll fight.
I'm vaccinated.
Get fucking vaccinated.
I'm vaccinated. I've got I'm at the third booster, I believe. I stopped when a lot more data came in on the aftermath of Pfizer and how much money they made during the pandemic. And the fact that old Jim Crow Joe Biden has decided to not fund any of these vaccines anymore. I mean, as Canadians, we can say, yes, great, we can get the vaccine because we have universal health care.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that universal health care, people need to understand we are already in a two-tiered system of health care. So if you're a wealthy hockey player, so let's use Evander Kane as an example, not his personal shit, but he took a skate to the wrist tonight and bled all over the ice, probably will need major surgery. He'll get that surgery here in Alberta if need be. He will jump the queue. he will make sure they will have him patched up and fixed up before the person with the brain aneurysm that's been on the wait list for 9 months, because the fact that that person is from a rural community, and the rural communities in this province don't fucking matter, other than you got to vote blue and make sure that you bring the lake of fire and all our racist, homophobic beliefs, because that's what rural Alberta is about. And I'm in rural Alberta, by the way. So I'm trying to break that. I don't know if you guys saw the post that I made. I hadn't been at many events during COVID. I still mask. I mask every fucking day I'm out of my house. And I don't care. I'll glare at people and tell them, and I'll curse them out in the mask. I love wearing a mask because you can't read my lips. You can hear the voice, but you can't see what I'm saying. But I'll say it loud enough that you can hear, like when walking in the grocery store. Anyway, not psychotic, I promise. However,
there were so many people at the Alberta NDP convention that were wearing masks. Basically everybody. So many. All of them.
They love to mask at their in-person events.
Yeah, like barbecues and Stampede pancake breakfast. They seem to like to mask and not be close contact with anyone, and not do photo ops, and not partner up with racists and whatever. Oh, wait, does that get to one of our stories? I think it does. Hold on. Let me share the screen.
We're the party that cares about COVID and long COVID. Promise.
Exactly.
Fingers crossed.
So we are here, and look at that. Is that on the screen? Look. Oh, there it is. Okay, there we go. So this is
really all right. We're jumping in. Okay.
We're jumping right in. We have to make sure that we cover these things. So yeah, I just have to find where. There it is. Okay, so now I can down. So this is the story that, and great job by Jeremy Apple, or Appel. Is it Appel? Jeremy, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Love your work. Loved your segment with our friend on Blueprints of Disruption. Anyway, this is the story. Wednesday, Alberta NDP suddenly revoked candidacy of Marilyn North Pagan. And please help me, Dee. Is it Pecani?
I am not sure.
I'm
going to be honest. I don't know that.
I will say Indigenous person here in Alberta who won the party nomination for Calgary, Klein, in March against two other hopefuls. The tipping point came in a since deleted series of several tweets about Calgary City Councillor Dan McLean, who had to step down from all council committee assignments after an image came of himself alongside right-wing political operatives Craig Chandler and Jonathan Dennis, while they mocked Indigenous people. And I watched that video and I was disgusted. So what Marilyn said had every right to say that. And everything she posted was absolutely correct. She spoke truth to power. She did nothing wrong. Other than,
and they did that on Indigenous Day, on National Indigenous Day. They had the freaking audacity.
Of course they did.
Bunch of white people policing how an Indigenous woman should feel about colonialist violence, and that's fine.
They say nothing in regards to what's happening today either. So that's the whole thing. So gets to this whole point,
like picture perfect representative of like what this day represents and honors as a person, and they're
absolutely.
Sorry, by Brandon.
Yeah, sorry.
We Stampede.
we need the Stampede money. We can't have you there. So 11 tweet thread, and she used the words untrue, disrespectful, and hurtful, and apologized to the volunteers. And I have no problem with her apologizing to the volunteers. That's not a problem at all. Her team was great. I understand when but she had nothing to apologize for.
No.
And that's the problem here. Is her hand was forced by white privileged colonizers that run the Alberta NDP.
100%. And you know, it's so frustrating
totally
because
her that wrote those tweets. It was 100%. I was like, that definitely doesn't sound like somebody else I know at the party. No, that was 100% her. But sorry, Jess, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's just really frustrating because it is a stark reminder of how much neoliberalism and colonialism is seeped in the NDP. Like, and that doesn't just include, you know, the provincial NDP. Like that boils into the federal NDP because they chose not to speak up about Wet'suwet'en. The Indigenous Political Council of the NDP has been trying to meet with the president and with Anne McGrath and with whoever they can meet with to have conversations about Indigenous rights. And they've been canceled on like 6 times. I know, because I'm one of them. And it's really frustrating because we want to have these real conversations, you know? It is a reflection that at the end of the day, Indigenous candidates, Indigenous people who work within the NDP, we are being used by these colonial institutions to show how fun and progressive they are, when the reality is that they are white first. They are white first. They might be leftists, they might be feminists, they might be queer, they might be all of these other things, but wholly and built at their core, they're white first, and they're going to uphold white supremacy. And unfortunately for us, we are battling an uphill fight where we have to constantly fight against that in our day-to-day lives and in these political lives. We're always being fought against. And it's really fucking frustrating because, you know, like, it doesn't have to be this way in the NDP.
There's like no reprieve at all. There's no
and you can't make excuses for them because there is none. There's no excuse for this kind of behavior. There's no excuse when you have incredible Indigenous MPs who are working in the NDP, who are advocating. Like Leah Gazan does some really incredible behind the scenes work. She and I had a conversation because I was understandably super pissed about John Horgan and the Wet'suwet'en situation. And we were having a candidates meeting during the election, and I was kind of losing my shit in the comments of Zoom. And she wanted to reach out to me and talk about these things because she felt it was important, and I'm thankful of that. But like, it is a deep-seated problem. And when it shows its ugly face, like it does in this situation, because it might hurt a couple Cowboys face, that's crazy. And I'm a horse girl through and through, but like, come on. For the Calgary fucking Stampede,
do you remember,
most of Alberta doesn't care. Like, most of Alberta doesn't care.
I was gonna say really quickly, do you remember when Rachel Notley, when she was asked about it, she's like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on down there. It sounds real bad, but I don't know anything about it." It's like, don't act like you're not being briefed about it, that you don't know about all this like interpolitical violence, this colonial violence that's going on. This is unceded territory. Unceded. It's not covered by a treaty. It's not covered by anything. It's literally not Canada. It's literally not Canada. And
also, like, that's the thing with that too, is that feigning that ignorance. Why are you a party leader if you don't know? I'm sorry, but how are you qualified? How are you qualified if you're not keeping up with these things? How are you in a position of power over other people in your party, or a position of influence, if you're not paying attention? That is literally your job. Yeah. Your whole job is to pay attention and to act on that appropriately and in an equitable way. And I just don't understand, like, what's not connecting here, you know? Where is it? If you're genuinely ignorant, why are you here? Right?
So, like, this might be a spicy opinion, but I don't think that, you know, state police should be going there and literally, like, destroying people's humanitarian aid, you know, doing illegal arrests, like, literally anything bad you could think of, like, a law enforcement or a police force to do. They're like, you know what? That's cool. Hold my beer. I'm going to do the one step more than that. It's, you know, real Indigenous allies we have here in the NDP. Like, we can't even support anti-imperialism like halfway around the world with Palestine and Israel. We can't even have that, right? Let
Yep.
alone our own BS that we have here. We can't. It's just yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I'm just a
White
white guy
first.
and not indigenous, so I'm not gonna
I'm a
say
white
too much
guy,
about it.
non-indigenous, and not
I'm a
member of
white
the
girl,
2S
indigenous.
LGBT community. So I'm speaking as a accomplice, not as an ally. That's the other thing is I hate the word
Love
ally.
that.
Like allies is a cop out. If you're an ally, you can just say something and make money off it and then fuck off. Where I'm an accomplice, where I will go and say something, speak truth to power, and I'll stand up for the indigenous peoples. I'll stand up for the Palestinians. I mean, I've been called an anti-Semite. I've been targeted, and I'm actually I've been listed on Twitter as anti-white. So I love that. I'll wear that.
Amen.
I will wear that fucking
How dare you
ribbon like.
portray your cultural heritage as a white person?
Well,
You know,
I was
white
on the
people, we have such a rich cultural background.
and that was the thing. I was on the Twitter space in regards to COVID the other night, and I said if I could, and I've said a lot to a lot of people, and it's pretty much talking from a white privilege side because I've never been discriminated based on my sexual orientation or based on my pigmentation. But if I could, I'd fucking denounce my whitehood, like Caucasian, like right away. I would just be whatever it is because I want no part, no connection to the current white privileged, white colonialized, white supremacy that is what when someone looks at white, that's the first thing. Anyone from the global majority looking at a white person, first thing you're going to think of is, okay, is this guy racist? Is this guy going to hurt me, or how is he going to hurt me, or how's he going to fuck me over in regards to if we do some sort of fundraiser, business, or whatever? So
Mhm.
that right away, that's the judgment. So I don't care to be. You want to judge me be an asshole? That's fine. I have no problem. If you don't like me because I speak my truth and I talk truth and you don't like that, that's fine. But we don't need to talk anymore, especially if you're trash, if you're transphobic, racist, ableist, sexist, or homophobic. You can fuck right off.
Yep.
Um,
Just so
on the
quickly,
other
if I can
side,
jump in
yeah,
about
absolutely.
like the comment about privilege. You know, I do have a lot of privilege myself, even though I'm technically an intersectional minority. You know, as a cis white guy, you know, the whole point of using our privilege is to go into those spaces and say,
Yeah,
hey, you need to listen to these people, not give our own opinions on things, but to amplify the voices of like, what have my comrades said about this? And you know, I've gotten that flack too, like comments like, "Well, you're not an indigenous person," or "How do you know?" Blah blah blah. It's like this is just what I've been told by the people that I care about, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying like I want to make sure that this viewpoint and this perspective is represented in this space because
100%.
obviously there aren't people here that can advocate for themselves. So if I can make that space more safe by saying like, hey, that's not right. This is what I've heard. I'm totally fine with being corrected by, you know, people, you know, in those spaces that I'm not a member of. That's totally fine. But you can't tell me as like another white person, like, hey, actually that's not right. It's like, well, that's what I've been told. If you know, we would, if there's, you know, an indigenous person, if there's a person of color here that would like to correct us, here's the space. Here, I'm making it open for you. That's the whole point of being
Absolutely.
an ally or an accomplice. I love that I'm an accomplice. Is that it's not you preaching to people, it's you saying, hey, back up, get away, because there are people here that aren't even comfortable sometimes with saying, you know, I identify in this community because it can be so hostile. So having
Yeah,
somebody with that privilege saying, no, I'm making the space for you and I'll, you know, have your back, that's what it's all about. It's not like being right. It's not about saying, well, I'm the informed white person and I'm telling you this and that. It's being like, hey, hold up, back off because somebody actually in that community has something to say. So, anyways,
absolutely.
that's
No,
my
that's
interjection there.
that's a perfect point and no problem at all. That was I believe it was it was either last year or 2 years ago. I've lost count, but I remember local activist Taylor McNally was talking about how she was tired of white privileged people stealing her voice and trying to say what she wants to say. And she goes, why can't you just sit back and amplify our voices? So I took that to heart. There's certain things that Taylor and I didn't agree with in regards to certain stuff. And a lot of those things that we didn't agree with, fuck, she was right all along.
And also, like, it doesn't matter if you don't agree with that person because they're the person in that community that has to deal with the consequences.
So this is the
It
whole
doesn't
thing.
matter,
So
right? So,
my
yeah.
fight comes up is fighting other people with white privilege. That's where the battle comes, and that's what pisses me off here when we're looking at abpoli and looking at, in particular, the Better Off with Rachel crowd. The pretentiousness that we see from this group of individuals that, oh well, she stood up for this and she's not Jason Kenney and she's not Danielle Smith. Well, fuck, you dog and horse shit in the yard better than a Danielle Smith and a Jason Kenney. That doesn't take, like, your
The bar is in hell.
the bar is on the ground.
You need a metal detector to find the bar.
To find the bar, it's so freaking low. So
yeah.
saying you're not that, you gotta. I think you got to change that. You change your song. That song has been sung a little too long. And if we're looking at, oh, we're not that, so let's go. Everyone's like, okay, shit. You talk a lot of shit on your show, and you don't have a lot of receipts, and blah blah blah. Fuck. You know what? I tell people, if I'm saying something, it's the fucking truth. I will prove, like, if you want me to prove it, I'll do that. But tonight, I made sure that in the comments that you'll see is the articles that we're going to discuss tonight. And it's that comparison of, are we really, or is it really better off with Rachel? And that's where, I mean, talking just based on the colonialist and the not anti-racist and not really supportive of the unions unless it benefits her. That's my personal opinion, just based on the fact that she didn't say fuck all about the Wildcat strike, other than, oh, we shouldn't do that because that's going to disrupt our healthcare system. Don't say that you're a union, pro-union leader if you're going to shit on the union that are fighting for the rights of everyone. So that's where
the whole point of a strike, the whole point of that sort of collective working class solidarity is that you are to disrupt. I mean, we saw in Ontario, probably CUPE didn't get everything they wanted, but it literally took a weekend for the conservative, for Doug Ford to be like, ooh, actually, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. Are you going to be okay if, I rescind this horribly...
You still there?
There goes the internet.
The internet is going for Justin, and he'll jump in, I'm sure.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
out and he'll come back. But his point is absolutely correct in regards to the basis of the you need disruption. That is the only way we need to actual bring in change, is through disruption. Now here in Alberta,
you go ahead.
Nope, that's okay. We're just bringing Justin back on.
Oh, hey, Justin.
Go ahead.
I was going to say,
in Alberta.
Yeah. I was just going to say really quick, one of the things too is, like, what's more disruptive of our healthcare system, a strike or our nurses being so burnt out that they can't actually do their jobs properly, that they're depressed, that they unalive, that they are going through so much stress that they retire early and they do not want to touch any kind of medical career, that they leave Alberta for a less stressed healthcare system like the United States where they can make a lot more money? What's more disruptive?
They'll leave for less money because
they'll go for less.
Treated with respect. Yeah.
What's more disruptive?
And that is and that gets into that point of actually see, the ADHD for me, I have this thing and then you lose it and then you have it or whatever. But no,
Yeah.
the whole point was for abpoli, I wanted to prove to people why Better Off with Rachel isn't necessarily the way to go, because the fact is, yes, she's calling out Danielle Smith on everything right now, and promises are made about healthcare and education. Right away, I'm going to like people will understand that Rachel Notley lied about rural healthcare. I was here. I'm in Central Alberta, so Red Deer Regional Hospital is the number one major hospital that takes. And people are looking calculation wise. Well, it's not as big as Calgary or Edmonton. Well, of course it's not, but it's also the biggest center that's drawing from all the way from Rocky Mountain House to Stettler, all the way up to sometimes Metaskiwin, but Pinoka for sure, Rimbey, all those different centers, Drayton Valley, are all being funneled into the Red Deer Regional Hospital. Rachel Notley did a presser in, was it 20, they got elected in 2016, I believe it's 2017 or 2018. She did the presser saying, we're going to fund this hospital. We're going to make sure that it's covered. It was shortly before the Alberta or the Canada Winter Games that was being hosted in Red Deer. So it was a great way to do a photo op, break ground on the new big athletic center that is being used very infrequently. Red Deer, what are they? Red Deer Polytechnic now, because they promised they would have university status. And as soon as old Dimitri, the fuckwad who's in charge of advanced education here, got in, that was one of the first ones that was kiboshed, was centralizing that. But point being is Rachel Notley promised the hospital. I went to the first meeting of the hospital. Wasn't the hospital board, but it was the group of individuals that were trying to save the hospital and fund for Red Deer Regional Hospital. And one of them was a doctor, and that doctor actually ran for the Alberta Party during the election and lost to Lagrange. And we had people that were at the rally and at those events and at those information sessions that funded Lagrange and the UCP. So instead of voting in the doctor that had the knowledge and the actual business plan on how you could actually effectively survive in the Red Deer Regional Hospital, you voted in a useless Bible thumping bitch who has decimated the education system. Anyway,
And you
so
know
that
why?
doctor,
It's because Lagrange is not an actual threat to them. She's the boogeyman. She's a part of the boogeyman. He would have been a threat, and that's more valuable to them to have the boogeyman.
That is an absolute point. And that is why, if you look at the Rachel Notley NDP, there's not, outside of Janice Irwin, who I think could run this province very well. I think she could win. She would run into a lot of the homophobic, misogynist pieces of shit that vote blue no matter who, even offense, like Ron Orr here in Central Alberta. Yeah, but there isn't a strong candidate or a strong MLE leader of the Alberta NDP, and it's done that purposefully, because if it's not Better Off with Rachel, then you don't stay in the Alberta NDP. So if you don't swallow the Orange Crush Kool-Aid that Rachel is throwing, you don't get to stay. As you're seeing in Red Deer, their current candidates are not the strongest candidates. The ones that were chosen were not the strongest candidates. The ones who actually won the seats in the original election were useless. The one woman financed $5,000 in K-Cups coffee and was called out in the ledge for spending $5,000 on coffee for her constituency office. Oh, I want to take care of I have lots of meetings there. Not $5,000 worth of K-Cups, lady. Like, that's utter white privilege. Now, I was going to post the actual article of that, but unfortunately, the person who called that out was the sex predator who was part of the Wild Rose Party, and then the UCP who's now in jail or whatever, who Dreeshen took over for. So as much as Dreeshen's not a sex predator, he's just the sexual assaultist. And
he's a rag, wet rag human.
Piece of garbage. He's
I can't
not
follow politics. I can't handle it. It's like these are the kind of conversations we have in politics.
He's not a convicted felon yet.
Thank God.
Let him. We'll see what happens in the case between the former his former girlfriend and who wants to call Jason Kenney to court because she said that he had inside knowledge of the abuse, the verbal and mental abuse that she was suffering. Anyway, I digress. The point being is there's want to get to the point of the NDP isn't that sunshine and lollipop place that everyone thinks it is. And Dee, you were right. Jack Layton was the last true leader of the NDP. If it wasn't for him dying of cancer, he would have been prime minister. But because he was dying of cancer and his health was down, Harper was able to get in and fuck with people and basically buy his way through that election by getting all the old people and picking them up, like breaking every election law in regards to getting people to the polls and having that list of conservative voters that he got his actual ridings to go and get and pick up and take to the polling stations. Jack Layton would have been that. And Jack Layton was not, he was more centrist than he was leftist because he was more about the business side, but he also understood politics.
And I have kind of a hot take on this. Okay. So I definitely agree that Jack Layton was like the last really notable leader of the NDP in the way if you think of what leadership should look like. But the reason for that is a mixture of so many different things. Number one, like Canadian politics and the trending in general. He was more centrist. At that time that he was there, that was kind of the attitude. We were living in a culture of kind of liberalism, like we were kind of in this stage where we were dipping our toes into what could eventually become and we're really starting to see on the left side, at least, cultural revolution on how we understand ourselves politically. So Jack Layton was honestly left for his time. The problem is that we are living in this hyper cascade of capitalism. We are being fed ads 24/7. We're being fed ads constantly. They're looking for ways to put it in our night sky and replace our stars. We're living in a completely different society. And as a result, we have seen a shift in our political landscape when it comes to the way that parties campaign. When you look at the federal NDP, the federal Liberals, the federal Conservatives, and then you look at also at the provincial side, whether it's the UCP or the Alberta NDP or the BC NDP, they are campaigning as if they are based in American politics. They are campaigning on their leader and their leader's presumed charisma that they're trying to sell us so that we give them money when we go to their meetings. They are trying to sell us a person. And they think that is how you do it because it worked before with Jack Layton. In a way, they sold us Jack Layton, but in a different cultural aspect. So people of that time, they were in a different financial situation. They were in a different mindset completely. They didn't have COVID underneath all of these other societal issues really bubbling to the surface. There's so much that's changed. The NDP and every single party, regardless of their affiliation, is trying to campaign to us, but they're not campaigning. They're selling us the image that they want us to believe they have. Rachel Notley feels fake on Twitter because she's trying to sell you herself as the premier. And we can see through it now because a lot of us have broken out of this capitalist illusion. We see through ads, we're blocking them. We're actively recognizing when something is trying to lie to us in order to financially or, take our time, take our attention, because that's like the biggest commodity that we have is our attention, right? We can see it now. there's never going to be a good leader for any political party in the way that we expect, because we've gone past the point of those parasocial relationships actually working. And not a lot of people have realized why they're at that point. We've recognized that it's because we're disillusioned by capitalism. A lot of people in rural Alberta have not come to that conclusion because they're not able to connect to people who can bring them to that point, and they're not being fed any kind of alternative media that is disputing all of the garbage that they're being sold and spoon-fed, and they don't like it, but they don't know anything else. And one of the things that I've really learned about Alberta, and especially rural Alberta, is that people are so tired of what politics has become on all sides, but they're just defaulting to what they know, or to the easiest option, or not showing up, because they don't know how to break the illusion the way that we have been fortunate enough to discover. There's been something that popped that bubble from us, that we were able to get away from that neoliberalism. But I don't think there will ever truly be a good leader for the NDP, because I think the NDP has the same struggle that every party is going to have for the rest of all time. Is we've moved past the point of needing party politics. We need to start voting for individuals. You talked about Janice Irwin. Janice Irwin could win her riding as Janice Irwin, and people know her as MLA Janice Irwin because it's Janice Irwin. I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot of MLAs who have that same kind of name power, recognition in their community. And it's a problem that we have in politics. As an MP, as an MLA, your community should know your name because you've done something good for them, and you've been a part of their community, and you are a member of that community, and because you are surrounded by love and trust. And we're missing that in politics, and I don't think we're ever going to see it again unless we start seeing people running as independents, to be frank, or to be running as individuals in a party who actually have some kind of charisma. Although, to be honest with you, we see what happens to those individuals because they beat out the leader.
Well, and if I could just jump in really quick.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I think a big part of that is because they pull out Janice all the time. Anything gay, gender, anything sort of queer related, Janice is there. Janice is sort of leading the fight. So not saying that like Janice doesn't have a presence in her riding and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that she gets a disproportionately larger amount of airtime or recognition because she is the token gay. She's literally the MLL gay. The ML gay. And I just have such a problem with that, just as like a queer person, is that it shouldn't just be about like, hey, Janice, can you do gay things for us? It's just like, so there's like that double-edged sword of like, yeah, of course, like a lot of more people know Janice, but it's because like she's been being taken advantage of. Again, in my opinion, she might not feel that way, but
she's choosing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's that. And my wife and I talk about it all the time. It's that internalized white supremacy, and she suffers from it. I mean, basically every MLA in the NDP that has integrity suffers from that. Notley doesn't suffer from that. She is white supremacy. The fact that she has the arrogance to say that she was born into this because her mom was pregnant with her at her dad's convention. Holy crap. If I almost vomited when I heard that story. There's so much nepotism. And if you look at Notley in general, if anything questions her, she just gives a no comment or she quickly jumps out. She
has five people in line that will jump in front of the bullet for her.
Exactly. Janice Irwin is one of those people. Yeah. I look at the fact that you have someone as much of a white privileged prick as Ryan Jesperson, and that's who she'll go on. She'll go on his show and spew the NDP rhetoric and the white privilege rhetoric of living in Edmonton, and I had a beautiful Thanksgiving. I'm like, fuck, people are poor, lady. Like, people are starving, people are on AISH, and you're posting fucking Thanksgiving photos of food you and your husband and your kids couldn't eat.
My husband's the cook. I'm so lucky that my husband is a good cooker.
He's a good cook. He's also a good cook of the NDP, and we're going to spill some hot tea here, because if you go back to episode 2 when we had Krista Lee on, she divulged this, so I'll just repeat her words, is the fact that Mr. Notley is the man behind the scenes puppet master of the NDP. He's the guy at the table who's making the decisions of who stays and who goes, but his hands, just like Macbeth, the hands, it's the wife's hands that are covered in blood, not his. And he gets away with that. And that's basically politics in a nutshell. We don't have politicians. We have yes people for corporations. We have capitalism driven puppets. And you see it in the United States. Everyone talks about, like, we're at the midterms and whatever, and this is going to happen or whatever. Yes, it's going to happen. The Republicans are going to gain the House or gain whatever the fuck they're going to gain. So because the Democrats want to lose, because the only way you can actually have anything work in this capitalist compensated system is if you have that enemy that you know that you can blame. You need the scapegoat. They like
stumble into winning. They're like, "Oh, whoopsie!" Like, I did plan on this, but maybe it happened.
And that will be Notley in 2023. I don't think she'll win, but if she does, it's going to be a stumble into the win. And if she does, it's not going to be a majority. And that actually is a really good thing. That's what I'm hoping for. I have no problem with Rachel Notley and the NDP winning the party, winning the seat and becoming the government, but I want to ensure that there's independent candidates to keep her in check, and that there is no majority government. I don't believe, like you said, Dee, that the party politics doesn't fucking work. Party politics only works for the politicians, and they get paid very well. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and every one of the MLAs got raises, including the NDP. Wasn't just the UCP that got the raises. So, like, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the fact that when a raise goes to an MLA, it's across the board. So any person who has got the seat as the representative gets that raise. But we're not going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about, we have to pull up our bootstraps and whatever other bullshit white privilege story that they're going to tell us. But that point of, like, we had the story here, and this is the big thing. Okay, Danielle Smith is the enemy. And don't get me wrong, Danielle Smith is the fucking enemy. She should not be a premier. She shouldn't be anything. She is a god-awful waste of space. All right, I got that off my chest. So
how you really feel? I feel like you might be holding back.
I'm holding back a little bit, yeah. So of course, the whole controversy was that she was in Medicine Hat and representing herself as the premier, not as the candidate in the by-election, which is true. Attended a grand opening event for the health and wellness expansion in Medicine Hat College. She was also at a Tigers game and all these other things, which you're going to see happen all the freaking time. Well, with Ms. Notley saying this, and we shouldn't allow this stuff to happen. Let's go back to when was this? This was March 2016, and she's cleared of reports of the ethics from the ethics commissioner of Tressler. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Marguerite Tressler is useful at all either. Everything that she's found has been useless. No one has actually faced.
The ethics commission is useless based off of my experience with them trying to sort of get involved in some of the behind the scenes stuff that I've had to go through. The Ethics Commission, their mandate is so narrow that they're more they're more likely to be like, sorry, sweetie, that's not our area.
They look at
and
her
then
in
if you
her
try to go
fancy
somewhere else,
place.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, what kind of ethics commissioner takes a picture in her living room? Like, come on. Anyway,
Love
so
that,
beautiful. So Jason Nixon, the Wild Rose critic, yeah, we won't talk about, because this is pre UCP. So the NDP.
I'm so tired.
He had basically the claims were that $150 for the main event, but then did a pre-fundraiser before that main event at $750, which is, excuse me, basically breaking that the election law that she's accusing Danielle Smith of doing. So she did the same damn thing back in 2016. And pretty much, if you look at comparison in regards to the really dirty stuff that goes on, they're the same in regards of standing up for capitalism. When we had the issue of people being disqualified based on standing up against racists, well, standing up against the money from the Calgary Stampede. Let's be real. It had nothing to do with racism.
I can't have my breakfast. What is my party? What is my campaign? I need to have my breakfast.
And we're going to have it in COVID, and we're still social distancing. Don't worry about it. COVID stops at the Stampede.
People to use masks. We're very much encouraging them. Yeah.
So then we had that massive influx, but no one, like I said, the accountability piece, and that's where we're sitting here going, I understand all about majority governments. I lived in BC prior to coming back to Alberta, and I was under the I was in Saskatchewan, then BC, then Alberta, then BC. In the time of BC, it was Gordon Campbell and Christy Clark and the BC Liberals. And if you want to see the playbook, it is the Jason Kenney UCP, Danielle Smith UCP, whoever the fuck's going to end up being the leader of the UCP when she goes to jail at some point. Oh, geez, did I say that out loud? Anyway, that's the playbook that they're using, and the playbook is get a majority and push through as many laws as possible that never see the light of day of a debate, that you cannot be stopped. So then we run into the biggest problem, and this is a problem provincially, this is a problem federally. Now, when our political system was put into place, the parliamentary system, based on the royal, whatever, don't get me started. Fuck the royals.
Yep.
And the monarchy.
Yes, queen. Yes.
Yeah. Goodbye, king. Number one, that donkey-eared, worthless piece of shit should not be celebrated at all. The guy is useless. And he only the only reason he's there is because he finally outlived his mother. Ultimately, she wanted the grandchild to become king and wanted him to be nothing. But she ended up meeting the lettuce and ended up getting sicker than she was and died. And yeah, so all beautiful and British. Point being, in our system, in the American system, it's not much better because you've got the veto power of the president and you've got all this other bullshit. But in our political system, we've got that thing called royal assent. And royal assent is supposed to be this catch-all. It's supposed to be the security blanket for Canadians. It's supposed to protect all of our citizens from corrupt politicians because we have the most integrity-filled individuals that become these, that are named to these positions. Forgive me, Governor General Payette.
Well, we know monarchies.
Bag of shit.
They're very integrity
polite
focused.
To the
they have a
people?
lot of, you know what?
A lot of care.
Yeah, they just
And-
really care about the everyday folks. So
Yeah.
So that's where we run into the problem. And I mean, one thing I'll say, Doug Ford, you useless bag of shit, you did do something right. You actually informed me that what you're trying to do that I believe was unconstitutional is actually in the Constitution. I learned that today. The fact that his thing of justifying the back to work legislation is actually 33 in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because the only way the provincial leaders at the time, when it was Pierre Elliott Trudeau and Jean Chrétien in his cabinet signing the Charter of Rights and Freedoms with the revisions, the only way they'd sign off on it is if you gave them authority to overrule the federal government in any way they believe necessary. So what he's done is it's bullshit.
And if I may jump in really quick, I get really tired of hearing on like the NDP side is that, oh well, you know, that's just how politics is done, and that's just how this and that is done. And it's just really funny that, you know, we need to have that sort of well, you know, it's not the, like, I hear so many times like, well, the tradition is that. And I know like common law, you base things off of precedent, and you can't just, ideally, you can't just be like, all those people were wrong, but sometimes you need to do that. But to hear like the most basic things, be like, well, it's not tradition to do that. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about tradition. Traditionally, I would be in a camp somewhere, or I would be dead. So maybe let's not focus on tradition. Let's focus on what we know to be right and to be true. And so it's like they sort of put it as like, oh well, it's like controversial not to use that, or it goes against tradition to use that. But it's like, at the end of the day, you could have somebody who doesn't give a shit about that. They're like, I need to use that because it's politically expedient for me, or it serves me. And then all of a sudden, what do we do with tradition? What do we do with like this history of BS, right? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's just like, I can't believe they would do that.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's not even tradition of this like land. It's not the tradition of this land. This land had 10,000 plus years of different governments, of beautiful democracies, of all of these really cohesive peoples who lived here, who had their traditions, and then had their traditions ripped apart in front of them and destroyed, and had their children stolen because of the traditions of another land. And you are basing your entire system of government off of an idea that you deserve to be here because you're white, right? And whether they want to admit it or not, when you do things by Canada's laws and Canada's system, it is a system that is built on and for white supremacy. It is built on a system that is meant to suppress Indigenous peoples and to suppress people of color and to suppress women and to suppress anybody who doesn't fit the cis white heteronorm. And it is a system that is not worth defending. Most of the people in the world are affected negatively by it. Our problem is that the people who are affected positively by it, or who allow themselves to accept microaggressions in exchange for privilege in a different aspect, those are the people who are currently calling the shots. And that's nobody in the grand scheme of things. And I think it speaks to like, we really need to focus our attention and our activism on the works of women of color, and especially Indigenous women, especially Black women and Black Indigenous women, because they are doing the work for their communities, and they are doing the work that bleeds in and helps our communities and helps us heal, because we're all traumatized by what has happened on this land. You know, I'm a Métis person. I have ancestry of Indigenous peoples and of white peoples. And I'm really aware of the fact that there's this trauma that comes from both being the colonizer and the colonized, right? And it gives me this kind of insight on the feelings that I have, that there's a guilt that I feel, that I should feel that guilt in a way, right? As a white person, I should feel the guilt of being a white person, because I've walked the world without feeling that guilt in a lot of aspects, and it's allowed me to be aggressive, like to have microaggressions and to be racist towards other peoples, whether I was aware of it or not. And that's something that every white person has to feel guilty with and live with it. But we can't just take that and do nothing with it. We have to work on being anti-racist, and we have to look at these systems that are built on racism, and part of our anti-racist work is dismantling them. And whether we want to take the time to admit that to ourselves or not, we have to be willing to challenge them. Otherwise, we're just walking in the same circle over and over again, pretending that we're walking a mile. And I don't like doing that. I think it's pointless. I see a better future with when activists, especially people who want to invest time in the NDP. I'm still part of the NDP. I'm still Lakeland's president, and using that as a platform where we can do some really good things for our community. I think you just have to be aware of how much better things can be, and really put yourself forward to do that. And it sucks because I get tired and I feel it, and you get kind of doomer sometimes, and you're like, ugh, there's no hope, but you have to kind of force it.
Absolutely. And that is the key, is where do we find the hope, and where I like and dislike the word hope, because I think hope is a cop-out in regards to, it's that catch-all of, oh, well, if we just hope things will change, then they might, and whatever. And Jesus had hope and whatever. And we get into the religious piece. Number one, when we're talking about being accomplice and standing up for people that are not there, go back to like I said, that I went to my best friend's wedding. He is a gay pastor in Rimbey, Alberta. He was married to his partner in the United Church of Rimbey, Alberta, by the minister that he worked with, the reverend that he worked with at the St. Andrew's United Church in Lacombe, who then was in Red Deer, who's now retired, Ross Smiley. So Ross did the service, was beautiful service. I love the fact Ross quoted The Color Purple before starting the service. And actually, if you go to the Talking Truth YouTube page, I actually have that speech in one of the videos, and I posted on TikTok in regards to his purple, because what was purple was Doug Ford, didn't want purple. He didn't want solidarity for the teachers assistant, or the education assistants in Ontario. We didn't want any support for that, and people are like, "F you, we're bringing purple." So that was thing, but it was his was about that beauty of purple and people walking by. And I love the fact that you had an ordained minister who'd been in the United Church his entire career, like he did, I believe, at least a decade here in Central Alberta, and saying it pisses God off when people ignore the beauty. It pisses God off. And I'm like, I'm in church, I'm hearing him say it pisses God off. And I'm like, okay, this part of spirituality and this part of religion, I can accept. This part, like, I was raised Roman Ukrainian Catholic. I hated the church. The church was just a place to be punished. It still, I believe, is a place to be punished. But at least with the United Church, especially Rimbey, they've done so much work in the community, and Pastor Marco has done so much in regards of, like, I would never go. Our oldest is part of the 2S LGBT community as well, and if they did not accept our oldest in that church, I wouldn't go. So even there's a church that had the affirming, was actually officially affirming, they still had board that wasn't fully accepted. But that's what I wanted to get to, is the Alberta. What is Alberta? You guys, you comrades, are Alberta. And I say guys because that's the common term. I apologize. It's that. But comrades for sure. You comrades are Alberta. Marco and his husband Darwin, that's Alberta. The bullshit that's being spewed out of the voice of the hate-filled monger who's not my premier, and not your premier, and not many people's premier, that's not Alberta. That's just a benevolent dictatorship under the guise of democracy. So the fact is, how do we change that? And do you have that? You have the right way of doing it. I believe the way we change it is through support of our local communities. I think right now we've run into that piece, and religion is a very it's a weapon. It's weaponized. The Bible is weaponized, and it's not the real Bible. Like I've told someone said, "Oh, blah blah blah, it's not the Bible." I said, "You need a new fucking book. If you're reading that saying it doesn't accept this, then you're a moron, and you need a new fucking book."
Yeah, I would actually. I'm a Christian myself. Like I haven't called myself a Christian the last couple of years because yeah. You take a look at the state of Christianity and you're like, ooh.
On the pod. Damn. Okay.
But yeah. But I have my Bible right here, and this I just want to sum up the way to understand how I've approached Christianity and my radicalization. You see communist Jesus beating up the bankers. That's what this book actually is about. And it frustrates me. You know, I spent a really long time in evangelical spaces in Alberta, and that's another reason why I have a really like intimate knowledge with rural Albertans, because it's a very religious community, and I love religion in a lot of ways, but they have lost this guy, this communist Jesus, and like it's so wild to see white supremacy fully engulf that. And you know, when I think about the solutions for rural Alberta, I think one of the things that a lot of leftists have to kind of contend with is like, you kind of have to be really cool about the religion, and you have to know it and be able to use that with theory. And it's a hard read sometimes. It's very boring if you try reading it cover to cover.
Yeah. See, I'll never be that. I'm always going to be the outside. I mean, that's why I don't fit in a corporate box. That's why I don't fit in many boxes. I'm outside the box. And I tell people that what's bringing me into this organization at this point is what's going to throw me out of this organization a year from now, because you say you want new ideas. You say you want someone who thinks outside the box, but it's you want someone who brings an idea from outside the box, but then fits it inside that box. And that part of that's illogical, as Spock would say. That it doesn't make sense. So bringing people with brilliant ideas and bringing people with new ideas and bringing people with new perspectives is the way you bring in change. And change is always for the better. When you're looking at change, you're not changing for change's sake. You're changing to make things better for all. And that's where the mistake comes in with We're Better Off with Rachel crew, is the fact that you have all these brilliant people like Megan, like you said, the indigenous, the global majority. There are great MLAs, good people with integrity in there. So I'm not calling out the whole party of being corrupt pieces of shit. That's the UCP, and possibly whatever independent guy is in Medicine Hat right now. But it's the capitalist driven piece that we have to get past. And one of the I would say she's conservative, but anyway, political analyst Kristen Raworth had a post today about why the NDP is shifting more towards the center, because people don't want the social issues don't bring the voters out. People want to be able to afford their homes, and they want to be able to afford food, and they want to be able to whatever. I'm like, Chris, I agree with you 100%. The problem is, if you're doing it based on exploitation of labor, you're a piece of shit. So until we look at the social issues in regards of how do we provide affordable housing, how do we provide addiction services, how do we provide food banks, how do we provide jobs in an economy for everyone, inclusive economy. So if you're disabled, if you're a member of the global majority, you're not targeted, you're not thrown out because of you don't fit inside that box. You're actually brought into the place for the gifts that you bring. So for me and Talking Truth and all the different things, baller gear and all these things that I do, I want to work with people. I want to partner with people. Ultimately, I want to grow this into that inclusive community. And it doesn't have to be a brand. It doesn't have to, but it has to be something that's going to work for everyone. So what Dee's doing in Lakeland with the aspect of focusing on the community and looking at mutual aid, that's beautiful. What Justin's doing with the 2S LGBT community, growing it in rural areas as well as in Edmonton and working with the community, that's beautiful. That's what we need to do. That's the focus. This whole argument about who's better in politics and oh well, I'm not as bad as this person. It doesn't care. If you're all about capitalism, you are as bad as that person. I'm sorry to say, if capitalism is your driving force, then you need to take a different lane. Because right now, all you people that are privileged who talk about Better Off with Rachel on our social media and in that and do TikTok stitches and all this other bullshit of, oh, she's so great and whatever. Rachel Notley as a person might be fine. Rachel Notley as a politician is a poison, and it is a poison for the province, and the province wouldn't be able to sustain that poison because it's just conservative light. It's not anything different than what we have now. It's like the US has. You have blue fash and you have red fash. What kind of fascist do you want? Because if your leader is being dictated by her husband behind the scenes, by the way, just for everyone who tuned in late or on the replay, Rachel Notley's husband is running the Alberta NDP from behind the scenes.
He's the table officer. Yep, he's there.
Table
he's
officer.
All the conversations that
all drive.
Runs. Yeah.
And that's why nothing of any sort of sustainability is going to pass at any of these conventions. It's going to be her in her running shoes and her Orange Crush stuff, the brand, because it's not the Alberta NDP, it's a Rachel Notley NDP. And if you have, like, if we're looking at who's running, who has votes, I don't know, we'll see. It's 27 minutes past the time that the polls close, so we'll see if it pops out shortly. But anyway, when you look at all her ads that were just being spewed into my Twitter feed today, it was all her and Rachel Notley. Rachel Notley was attached to every ad, everything about the by-election of this local person who's connected to the education sector in Medicine Hat, Brooks, and area had to have Rachel Notley attached to her for the Alberta NDP to have her as the candidate. If you were smart, Alberta NDP, you would have supported Barry and the Alberta Party leader, just so you would have the people that are going to have a chance to win that seat. But because the fact that you were doing similar to what Barry and the Alberta Party are doing, that's going to split the vote and will most likely mean not my premier will win by 500 or 600 votes in a just slightly under the amount that she won the leadership with the 0.04% of the province that voted her in.
Democracy, baby.
It's all democracy, and that's why I tell people democracy is hypocrisy. Yeah. So our current electoral system doesn't work. Party politics doesn't work. Mutual aid does work, and we've seen it work. I believe we need more support organizations in the communities, not charities, because charities are driven by capitalism. If you need to understand, if it's a non-profit or not-for-profit,
you're chasing the money.
You're chasing grants. You're chasing all these different things, and with the current government structure, with the Alberta lotteries, it's all the slush fund. It's a general fund. You're not getting as much as you were. those charities, and the majority of those charities have a religious connotation to them as well, especially the ones that are run by the Nixon family, that god-awful piece of crap who keeps hosting those prayer breakfasts with whoever the premier is or whoever the leader is. And the mustard seed. I'm not saying the mustard seed doesn't do good things, but when you discriminate based on religion, there's no use for you in this community or in the province.
Can I tell you some tea about olive tree?
Of
Oh my
course.
gosh. Okay, so the olive tree in the Lloydminster community, the lady who runs it, first of all, she told T. Gurley Campbell, who's like an activist here in Lloyd, who does Vermilion Lloydminster, or it's Lloydminster and Vermilion for Equity. They were looking for food donations because they do mutual aid on Thursdays and Sundays. They do street teams, so they help on the unhoused community. They bring food and everything like that. She wanted to get some food as a donation, so she had to go through the lady in the olive tree because she has a monopoly over it. Every single food donation in Lloyd has to go through this one person. And this one person told T. Gurley Campbell, who is a Black Indigenous woman, that she would not give any food to Lloydminster and Vermilion for Equity because T. Gurley was too aggressive. She had too much of an aggressive vibe for her. And we all know what that really means. But the kicker is that when they ended up ultimately getting some food donations from this olive tree here in Lloyd, they got a bottle of Fiji water, a couple of Dasani water bottles, an Aquafina water bottle, like Co-op Gold water bottle, box of granola bars, and salt. That was what they got to hand out to unhoused people in the community. That's how much Olive Tree and Lloydminster gives a shit. It's appalling. It is appalling. And all of the food donation bank, like the food bank donations, go through her as well. So if you want to go to the food bank, you got to go through the Olive Tree. You got to go through the racist lady. It's something.
It is something, and the story, D, is not it's not different anywhere else. Like it's the same story everywhere. One of the things that if I ever got in some sort of power position or was connected, or some freaking politician actually listened to me, I would mandate the food banks to only be emergency only in regards to the food. But the food bank society provides everyone unconditional access to gift cards to the grocery stores. So then you can go with pride to buy your basic necessities needed for your house, not just whatever someone couldn't use or expired or it's being distributed. So when
I was accessing the food bank for a while there, I didn't get no gift card. They were like,
of course not.
Yeah, technically this food is supposed to last you 3 days. I'm like, great, this is all the food that I can have for the month.
Yeah.
So they like tell you that like this is only to like get you by for a few days, but it's like, great, I'm gonna have to ration this for a whole month.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous, and that's that, and because it's bureaucratic, because it's driven by the capitalism. I mean, that would be the basis of. You've got the Galen Westons, you've got the Jimmy Pattisons, you've got the fake Indigenous, considered Indigenous Sobeys ownership group out of in Nova Scotia. That
you got
use their
the
Indigenous
greedflationers, as the NDP calls them, instead of
capitalists.
capitalists.
Well, I go against greedflation.
I say West inflation, and I actually have T-shirts, the no-name color that says, it's not inflation, it's West inflation.
I like that.
Because Galen is a greedy ghoul who is a piece of crap as well. But the point is if these guys want to be the ones that dictate society and dictate mandates in regards of government funds for their grocery store coolers and freezers and all this stuff that the Trudeau government provided to Galen Weston and Loblaws, then they should have to provide gift cards to the food banks and to the people, the activist organizations, so then people can be proud to go, and there isn't a stigma in regards to if you have to utilize food bank or you need the hand up. This whole thing about stigmatizing poverty or punishing poverty needs to change, because if we continue to punish poverty, that just continues the colonized system. That ensures that the people in power stay in power. So if we want to get the people out of power, or we want to more balance the power, that would be one of the ways to do it, because right now the political system doesn't work. So if everyone had a thing that they weren't embarrassed to have access to, that's a start. I mean, I'm a firm believer of UBI as well. I've had arguments of, well, UBI would just continue capitalism or whatever. Well, while we're in a capitalist system, we need something to fight the capitalists. So having a UBI for everyone unconditional would actually increase the economy, as opposed to the bullshit inflation that oh, we got inflation because we've given away money. You've got inflation because you keep sending money to Ukraine. That's why we have inflation. It's got nothing to do with giving people CERB because you're clawing that back, or giving people tax breaks because you've given the rich the tax breaks. The elite have had tax breaks their entire lives. You don't chase anyone in the Cayman Islands or any of the Bermuda papers or anything like that. You go after the small person who can't pay their taxes, and you keep gouging them over and over and over again. So don't give me the bullshit about how us giving you money is causing inflation. Number one, it's our money. Like, if people didn't realize income tax is illegal, we shouldn't have to pay income tax. Income tax was supposed to be temporary, but because it is a great cash cow for governments to be able to have surpluses to justify we're leaders and we're good money managers, as we saw the UCP with this big surplus of all the COVID relief money that they did not hand out to anyone in the province. Oh, we've got this big surplus because we let 5,000 plus Albertans die by taking away.
We literally killed people.
Yeah. And that goes back to that gross negligence causing death for Hinshaw. We're getting we're getting close to ending. Always want to share what you guys are up to next or now. Where can people find you? Anything else you want to get out there to the masses? And we'll start with Dee.
I am currently continuing on my work with Lakeland. We're going to be doing some town halls in some of the communities. I don't know what the timeline looks like because we do want to be mindful of COVID and the response to COVID. And when I picture a town hall, it's an in-person town hall where we can break bread together, because I do believe that that's most effective in rural Alberta. But for the time, got to figure out some things where we can be safe and keep Albertans safe. Me personally, I just ride horses and shoot guns. That's currently my personality right now. Throwing in on my... Yeah, I'm like fully Albertan. I'm currently just taking care of a horse that I just got recently. She's a darling. She's an Appaloosa, and I'm obsessed with her. And I work in a gun store, so focusing a lot of time on learning about guns, which...
Well, it's great because you're now showing that the leftist, all us radical leftists actually are about gun control and about people owning guns and we're not anti-gun. Like, contrary to the beliefs of the right-wing radical fuckwaffles that are out there that say that, oh, you socialists, you guys don't like guns, you want to take away my guns. No, we should take away your guns because you aren't smart enough to use them, but we're not taking them away from everyone because of, oh, the world shouldn't have guns. Yeah, well, then the criminals have guns and no one can defend themselves, so then we're kind of effed. So
if I wanted your guns being away, they would have been gone already.
Also, like, there are some people I'm very much when it comes to buying something, I'm a one and done kind of girl. I gotta get my dollar amount, right? Like, Unless it's food, which let's be real, we all make exceptions for food. But if I'm buying something, I better enjoy. If it's $100, I better be able to enjoy that thing 100 times. I do not understand how some people spend $10,000 on handguns as they're being banned, knowing they're going to be banned, and then have the audacity to be like, ammo's expensive. Girl, excuse me? You just
All the
spent my
people
whole
that die of
paycheck.
gun violence is expensive.
Yeah. And I one of the things I've been doing is reading the committee meeting, and I won't tell you much about what side of the gun debate I'm on, because I think it's a nuanced conversation that has to be very personal, and some people get offended and upset, but I'm also coming from a very different place now. But the side that is arguing for Bill C-21 to pass, they brought facts, they brought stats, they brought people who have had real experiences. The side that's going against it is like, I don't want to lose my hobby. And then they're like, wait, it's not a hobby, it's a way of life. Because sometimes when I go to Toronto, people who I've shot guns with invite me over to their house. And I'm reading this and I'm like, that's cool. I can go to Kamloops and I can ask either people I've connected with in church or on the internet. But that does not mean that the internet's a way of life, my friend. But go for, right? But yeah, that's what I'm doing. And you can find me at Twitter for the most part. I don't know if I'm going back to any other social medias. Sometimes I dream about going back to my Tumblr blog, but it's pretty cringe. It's about 10 years old. So for now, I'm on Twitter watching Elon Musk embarrass himself in front of the entire world. And I'm just waiting for the day that he accidentally posts a D-pic, because it's going to happen. I'm calling it now. It's on my 2023 bingo card.
I've got the pic that he really doesn't like, and if I want to get banned from Twitter, I will post it. It's him in his cowboy hat as a kid. No, it was actually him in what a lot of people don't realize is he actually grew up in Saskatchewan. Like when they moved from Africa, he ended up in Saskatchewan, and his mom was a model and actress. And so
a Saskatchewan model and actress. Put that on the CV.
Oh yeah, so there's a picture of her, like beautiful woman, at Wascana in Regina, and then there's a picture of him at some old farm trailer, and he's got his cowboy hat and he's like just playing cowboy, and I'm going, yeah, that's pretty much what you're doing now with the sink there, you ass gremlin. Whatever you're doing is not working, and yeah, we'll just see if it. I'm not going anywhere. I'll just say that unless I'm thrown off, then I have to go somewhere. But that I'm choosing not to. I'm also choosing Twitter. But yeah, we've got your handle in the description on here as well, so people will be able to see that and tweet it out and all that stuff. Justin, how about yourself? What's happening? What's in the future, and where are we going?
Yeah, so to be honest, I really put in a lot of my heart and soul into the NDP and was really sort of fucked over, if I'll be honest. And, that's something that I've talked with a lot of people, and that's sort of what they sort of thrive on, is they'll just take, I think Des was saying earlier, there's that like bottomless zeal. You're like, go in there, you're like, yeah, I'm so excited to finally be in a place where I'm treated as a human being and I'm respected, and there are people that will fight for me. And then you go there and the whole bureaucratic system is there to just keep you in line and keep you there. So to be honest, I'm kind of just trying to recover from the trauma, because honestly, it's been traumatic. And what's really upsetting is that there's so many people that are saying, like, I'm a survivor of the Alberta NDP. Like, in what world should we be saying I'm a survivor of the NDP? I made it out alive, even though I was treated horribly and whatnot. So not not to like, I guess, make this all depressing and whatnot, but I'm on Twitter. People think that I'm not real because I have like no tweets and whatnot. I don't really have too much of a social media presence, but I mean, you can follow me there if you want. There's a couple things that, if I can, just to end off with.
Absolutely.
I know we're talking about the Alberta NDP and how, so focused on capitalism and sort of like, how is this going to make us money? How is this going to the Alberta NDP is a democratic socialist party. It's right there in the Constitution. It's on the first couple pages. It's at the end, and they're very clear about what democratic socialism is. It's democracy to the economy. It's the people owning the means of production. So the fact that we have this complete bastardization of what the Alberta NDP is supposed to be, like the Alberta NDP on paper, is pretty great. I would love that for me a party, and that's I think a party that a lot of us went in there and signed up for. And then what we found out is that no, actually, that's like relics of the past, and it's a little embarrassing we have that in there. Maybe we'll remove it sometime. But so going in there and thinking like, I'm a disabled person, I'm a gay person, and wow, I'll be treated with respect and my voice will be heard, and finding out that actually no, all they want is my money. How much money can you make us? If we're planning a community event, can we make money from that? We can't build community when we're just extracting every little cent that we can from minority populations that are disadvantaged under capitalism. People do not want to show up to an event if they're just expected to be like, well, we only planned this because we wanted you to give us money. And if you can't give us money, well, that kind of sucks. Maybe next time you come here, you'll learn and you'll know better and you'll bring us some money. So just to talk a little bit more about that is that this is not how the party is supposed to be. This is not how the Alberta NDP is supposed to be. It's not how the NDP is supposed to be. We're supposed to be the party of labor. We're supposed to be the party of giving a shit about people, to put it in very layman's terms. I just want to sort of, I'm going to focus on me now for a little bit. And I'm going to focus on, fulfilling myself. Because a lot of my life, I was just so focused on how can I help other people? How can I do this and that? And how can I be that person where it's like, honestly, sometimes just don't give a shit. And they'll just take everything they can from you and they'll be like,
100%.
That's nice. Thank you. But maybe I'll end off with also, because I'm going to be super poetic. I don't know if you know the show Community. It's my favorite show with Joe McHale. We were talking about hope earlier. And in season 6, there's a great moment where one of the characters asks, well, what do you hope happens? And the other character is like, hope is pouting in advance. Hope is fate's richer bitch your sister. Hope is the deformed, ad-bound incest monster offspring of entitlement and fear. So don't give me hope. Give me something to fight for. Give me a plan. Give me something that actually means something, because your words saying, oh, it'll be better, we can make it better. I don't give a shit about how you think you can make it better, and do that and act that way. So with that, I guess, mic drop. Follow me on the
beautiful
Twitter.
Hot take. Loved it.
Loved it. Beautiful
much.
take. And you guys, like I said, there is always an open invitation for you to jump on. If you have a topic you want to cover that the mainstream isn't going to cover, message me. We'll get you on here. We will talk more. We'll do this again because 2023.
Because I think we'll need to do this again. I think we have lots to say. So
we've got lots to say, and we didn't get a lot out, but we did get hopefully a couple of seeds. Because when we're looking at other socialist independent media and ones with integrity, not the bullshit like the TYTs and whatever in the States that have the Matt Gaetzes or some of the people here. Like the problem here with the majority of the independent media in here is right-wing nut jobs, like your rebel media and all that garbage. That's going to spew the conservative mindset and try and grift their way to whatever money they can get. So that's why I wanted to give this platform that was coming from the left. I mean, people are going, well, you've got like an Alex Jones type of attitude. I'm like, yeah, well, if that excites you and gets you to join the community, great. We welcome you there. But if I'm coming as Alex Jones, it's just through anger. It's got nothing to do with the god awful bullshit thought process that moron has.
Which
So yes,
cost,
we
how
will.
much was it? $1 billion. That's what it cost. That's what it cost.
It cost
So.
that. We're always going to call out the people in power, be it the Notleys, be it the Smiths. I'm so excited because if Smith wins tonight, I'm not excited about that because she's still not my premier, but the not my premier merchandise will be available in the next couple days. I'll be able to sell that again. And if you guys have any ideas, message me. We'll work together. If you have our artwork that you want to do on merchandise, we'll put it in there. And whatever.
Got some mad figures I could send your way.
Fantastic. And pick a organization that you want to support, because the whole key with this is, yes, it is right now my only source of income, so it not selling is kind of hurting whatever. However, I will not do anything that's just going to be based on profit. It's always going to be based on what can we do to support. So if there's an organization or individual, GoFundMe, something that you want supported, get a hold of me. We've got a whole process of it. Our major print partner and distribution center is an Iranian-owned company in the Greater Toronto area, a family-owned operation that also has a location in Ohio for our American people. So unlike other people in Alberta that sell things through Redbubble and T-shirt and all this other bullshit, our stuff is actually produced in Canada. The product that we use for apparel is stuff that is environmentally and ethically sourced. So there's no sweatshops, there's none of the shit that other people are using. We do that. I know a lot of people don't care about that, but I will say it every time I can that we use ethically sourced. You go to bolliger.org, you'll see my cartoon face or whatever and see some of the merchandise there. We have a bunch of things. We have some athletes, some organizations, but most of it is based on activism. So we will have the Not My Premier, notmypremier.ca. We'll have that. Notmypremier.com. We'll see where we go with that. We got both websites. But it doesn't have to be Daniel Smith. It could be Scott Moe. It could be David Eby. It could be Doug Ford. It could be the woman who disappeared in Manitoba and came back 2 months later, and everyone's like, where the hell did she go? I don't know. Guy in Nova Scotia, whoever. If they're not your premier, that's the merchandise. It's mugs, it's stuff, it's shit to whatever, and we can raise money for a good cause. That these comrades are going to provide me who they want to raise money for. We'll do it. And yeah, that merchandise will be available at ballergear.org or notmypremier.ca. Everything ADC at sleek.bio/ADC. And you can follow us on Twitter at ADC Talking Truth, on TikTok at ADC Truth. And if we can get, I believe it's 65 more followers, we will broadcast this live next week on TikTok because we're that close to 1,000. So if you want to push this message and have more people hear this stuff instead of the bullshit that's coming from other places, follow us on TikTok. So that's it for me. I don't know what our subject's going to be next week, but it's probably going to be fun. This was a great time. Again, thank you, comrades. We will talk to everyone again next week.
Thank you for having me. This was great.